Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the On-Screen podcast, the official podcast of the Total Screen. I am your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is
William Rohrig.
So today we are going to be talking about the third episode of What If? The World Lost Its Mightiest Heroes, and we're going to be talking about the recent Witcher prequel animated movie on Netflix, The Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf. In addition, we're going to be talking about some stuff that's coming up in the next week or so, and we're going to be covering a certain trailer that dropped, and that's where we're going to start. So we're going to kick things off with our segment On Beat. On Beat is a segment where we talk about recent news. We discussed a few different things and thought about, hey, should we put on some stuff from Gamescom? And then we kind of looked at what the offerings were and said, nah.
It was nothing too exciting for me. I think like the most exciting thing, more for Tyson than for me, would be the Saints Row reboot, since Tyson is into that franchise. But it's, I don't know, Gamescom was never something that really terribly excited me.
Plus, all of these events since COVID have been kind of pretty lackluster.
Yeah.
Just because since they don't have like an in-person element, like it just became like a limited stream, and all the big players are basically like, well, why are we going to do it through theirs? If it's a stream-only event, we'll just do our own thing.
Gamescom was always like Gamescom is basically like Euro E3. There's usually some announcements, but it's not like, it was never like the earth-shattering stuff that you would expect from like E3 proper. You know?
I remember when the show was new, there were like 1 or 2 years where we actually got some pretty big things from Gamescom. But that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, ages ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time since there's been really anything interesting there. So that leaves us with the one news story this week that really is a big deal, and that's the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. In addition to the trailer, we'll talk about some other news and rumors and info and stuff that's been coming out about this movie.
Well, first it leaked, and then it dropped.
It leaked you saw the leaked one, and you said it had incomplete visual effects.
Yeah, here's the leaked trailer. Okay, so it was basically like, I guess the guy who like was involved in the effects was showing the trailer to somebody else on his phone. I think that's what was happening. And then somebody was obviously like filming the phone over his shoulder. So you got like grainy footage. I don't know if like it was what camera was used to. It wasn't like a high quality camera either. Probably just another phone.
Mm-hmm.
Is like somebody recording with their phone over the shoulder of another guy with the trailer running on his phone. And that was what
while a train was going by.
And so like it was very hard to really see or make out like a lot of the dialogue. But from what you can see, you can see enough to where you can get the general gist of it.
Mm-hmm.
You make out enough of it.
There's a few hero shots where you're like, oh, that's Doc Ock, and that's, you know.
But you could clearly see when they're doing some of the shots, like Spider-Man swinging through the city or going through like, there's like the composite model for the city or whatever. It's not like actually there in the leak. So it was clearly not a completed trailer. It was complete as far as all the scenes were in there, all the dialogue, everything was in there. It's just the effects weren't there. So it wasn't like fully complete. And it was a terrible way to watch that trailer. Okay, it was horrible.
Yeah,
so
I didn't seek it out. I just said, I'll just wait for the original.
Yeah.
I thought, like, okay, well, if it's leaking now, that means it's probably going to be attached to Shang-Chi. But I'm guessing because it leaked, they pushed it out a few days early.
That's what I'm guessing too. Because they said, they probably just said, let's just do it. And yeah, it's fantastic. I'm super hyped. And it's because, this is the first movie where they're going to be fully embracing the multiverse.
Yeah.
Which is a really exciting thing to see. And obviously they're doing it because like they showed in the movie, in the trailer, they showed the pumpkin bombs from the Green Goblin from the first Raimi Spider-Man. Like they showed the pumpkin bomb and you heard the laugh over it.
Yeah.
You know, they teased that, and then they got the full reveal of Dr. Octopus, which we already knew.
He had a straight up hero shot, so you know, like it's no hint.
It's no hint. Yeah, he had a straight up hero shot. That was the stinger for the trailer, you know, where they left it off. Like they knew what they were doing with that. And even though like you already knew he was going to be in the movie because, you know, it's hard to say. It didn't leak because the actor straight up said he was in the movie playing Dr. Octopus.
Yeah, he's been confirmed. Jamie Foxx has been confirmed. Again, they teased Green Goblin, but, you know, Willem Dafoe has not been confirmed. Yeah.
I doubt it's going to be James Franco.
Yeah, with his current situation. It's probably William Dafoe because they're going for those kind of big bads and stuff. I also heard some people saying that like the No Way Home could, rather than talking about Spider-Man, it could reference these characters that are basically dead from the other like Spider-Man movies. And so like they can't return because if they return to the original world, then they'll die. It's like they were plucked from their realities around the events of their deaths.
That's interesting. So this trailer also kind of reveals the plot of the movie pretty much, you know, like the driving plot of the movie, like, or at least like the inciting incident. The inciting incident is, as we know, after the end of Far From Home, Peter Parker's identity as Spider-Man has been revealed to the world. And also he's being blamed for the death of Mysterio because of the drones, the whole drone situation. And so basically, Peter Parker's kind of wishing, you know, like he's hating it. He's got a media circus. He's got like everybody in his life coming down on him because he's Spider-Man and they know it. And so he's really feeling, you know, the pressure. So in a, I guess like an attempt of desperation, he goes to Stephen Strange.
He remembers he knows a wizard.
Yeah, he remembers he knows a wizard. Yeah. He's like, shit, this dude knows magic. He could do something for me, right? Yeah, he goes to Stephen Strange and he asks him like, oh, can you like just cast a spell to make everybody forget that I'm Spider-Man?
And Wong says, don't cast that spell.
Yeah, Wong says,
too dangerous. And then he takes off through a portal. And he takes off through a portal to who knows where, because I don't know if this is supposed to take place after Shang-Chi or not. Because if you watch the Shang-Chi trailer, you see Wong is inexplicably in a cage fight with the Abomination. So I have no idea how those two events connect on the timeline at this point. But anyway, he says, don't cast that spell. It's too dangerous. And Doctor Strange is just like, wink. And then he does it. And then Peter messes up the spell because like he realizes during it that he doesn't want the people closest to him to forget about him. Yeah.
And Doctor Strange is like, that's not how the spell works. And I'm casting it, so please shut up. But he won't. And that messes up the spell and opens up the door to these multiverse hijinks that we're going to get into for the rest of the movie, for these villains from the Sony Spider-Man films to return.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they're actually pulling, like I had a thought because of the way that the Doctor Strange element was put into it, that this might actually end up being another fake out about the multiverse. With it being Doctor Strange basically having Peter go through like a, I don't know, It's a Wonderful Life type, you know?
Oh God. I hope that's not the direction they're going through. Jesus. You know, imagine your life.
This is why you shouldn't mess with time, exist. You know, kind of like this is why you shouldn't mess with this.
Right. This is why you shouldn't mess. No, I don't think they're going with that. I know what they're doing, and it's kind of ingenious in a way. But
there is a comic book run that it's really similar to, apparently.
There is a comic book run where Doctor Strange did make the world forget about Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. That did happen, apparently. Also, I saw something that this was inspired by One More Day. Really hope they don't stick too closely to that, because that storyline was horrible. But anyway,
I think even when they follow like a storyline that is an inspiration, or that even is the namesake for a story in the movies, they kind of just take their own complete direction from that.
Yeah, they do.
Civil War was very different.
Yes, it was
from either of the Civil War runs, you know.
Right.
So and that straight up shared the name, you know.
But yeah, I think I know what they're doing. This is really the setup for this. This allows them to have fun, but this is also going to be the handoff. This is going to be where Marvel hands Spider-Man back to Sony because this is the last movie in their deal, which they specifically extended the deal to do this movie. And this is currently the last movie in the deal. I don't think Marvel's going to extend it. I think Sony wants their toys back. This seems like an elegant way to do it. Have this storyline where we send Peter off to the Sony Spider-Man universe for an adventure, and then he gets stuck there, and Doctor Strange makes everybody in the MCU forget Spider-Man exists. So that we can now, Spider-Man's with Sony. It's not messing up the MCU because nobody remembers Spider-Man happened.
And then Tom Hardy can finally punch Tom Holland in the face.
Yeah, Tom Hardy can finally punch Tom Holland in the face, yes. Which is probably going to be like the first thing that happens. The first like Sony Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland is probably going to be with freaking Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little disappointing just because like, I'm really going to take Spider-Man. You're really going to regress Spider-Man.
Right.
Like, it's like, oh, well, guess so.
It was inevitable.
Yeah. Oh, God. They should have just made a permanent deal.
Yeah, they should.
These, like, multi-picture deals. They should have just made a permanent deal, Sony's probably going to come crying back because they're probably going to start flopping again immediately after.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Going to be like, is there a way you can bring Spider-Man back into the MCU?
Yeah, right. And the thing that's also telling is prior to this trailer dropping, Sony had named their Marvel films Sony's Universe of Marvel Characters. And I think now they renamed it to Sony's Spider-Man Universe. So that's also telling.
Yeah.
That's Sony basically saying we got Spider-Man back.
It should make for a good movie, but a disappointing continuation of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Oh, well. So that's the Spider-Man trailer. In addition to that, there were a lot of set pictures that leaked around the time the trailer did that showed what appears to be Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire on the set.
Yeah, now they were not in this trailer. There was no oh my god moment with either of those actors. Both of those actors have denied being a part of this film, but it is interesting
that they happen to be in the same area where it's filming, and both were on set at the same time in costume.
It could be nothing. Yeah, right. Could be nothing. Could be something. I don't know.
It seems very likely that it's going to actually be a thing.
Right.
But who knows? Marvel's good at fake outs. Remember when they did the Thor Ragnarok trailers that came out that all omitted that Thor had lost his eye?
Oh, yeah.
They actually did like CG work to give his eye back, or where it had been done with like both makeup and CG to get rid of it. And yeah, so who knows? Marvel's kooky. They also did that whole thing also with Thor Ragnarok, where the whole thing with Hela breaking Thor's hammer happened in like an alleyway in New York.
Right.
Whereas like in the movie, it was like in an open field in like Norway. So yeah, Marvel can like play with what they reveal to us. So who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen until it happens? The movie drops in December, Christmas. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be a fun way to cap off the year for MCU.
Got 4 MCU movies this year? We already had Black Widow.
Yes,
Shang-Chi is coming up
Shang-Chi,
next Friday.
It's coming up this Friday. I believe Eternals is November, I want to say.
Yeah, I think so.
And then, Eternals is November, and then we got Spider-Man on Christmas. So 4 films.
We're already 3 series in on Disney Plus.
We had 3 live action series, and we have the What If animated series. So Marvel fans are getting spoiled this year after literally nothing last year.
We got more Disney Plus shows coming up this year too, like Hawkeye's this year.
Yeah, we still got more coming this year too. So so Marvel, we're feasting this year.
We went 2 years without anything. Now we're just getting lots.
Yeah. Now we're just getting lots. Now we're feasting.
And Disney Plus is finally worth it.
Yeah. I went a whole year with Disney Plus with nothing that I subscribed to it for a year. Yeah. That was annoying.
Now it's finally worth it. That's it for our news segment on Beat. Now on to our next segment, On the Horizon. On the horizon. This is where we talk about stuff that's coming up in the next week or so, about week and a half, 2 weeks. And yeah, there's a few things coming up in the next couple of weeks, starting in the next couple of days, I think. This is like Christmas for me, because even besides the big shows and movies and games that we're talking about here, there's like an album from a band I like that's coming out. You know, there's like an audiobook for for a series I listen to that's coming out. So it's like constant stuff for me. So it's great. But here's some of the highlights of what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. This Friday, August 27th, No More Heroes 3 comes out on Nintendo Switch. So this was a Wii series. The last one came, I think, in like 2009 or 2010.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this. The second game's
it's worth noting that the first two are on Switch as well right now. So.
Yeah. The second game's not so great.
Back. Yeah.
So the first game and this game were both, directly directed by Suda51.
Looking at this, actually, No More Heroes 2 wasn't ported outside the Wii until the Switch port. And then
it's not a loss. It wasn't that great of a game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. See, the thing with No More Heroes, for people who either are curious about it and may not have played the game series, is that it's not particularly all that well polished. What makes it a good game is the writing.
Generally aren't.
Yeah, it's the writing, it's the characterization, it's Suda51's involvement. In No More Heroes 2, he kind of like took a back seat and he didn't direct it and he wasn't too terribly involved with the story and stuff like that. So it was still a stylistic game. It still had some cool ideas. It still had great music like the whole series does. But like, it just wasn't really all that clever or interesting. Whereas like No More Heroes 1 really was. And No More Heroes 3 is a return with Suda51. It seems to be on the right track to being, like the first game. Really, really good. So yeah, anybody that's interested in getting it, just know that it's not a very polished
anybody interested
franchise.
In Suda51 should probably check out Lollipop Chainsaw on the PlayStation 3 and 360. It's interesting because it was directed by Suda51 and it was co-written by James Gunn.
Yeah. James Gunn actually referenced it recently with the Suicide Squad, where he said that the Harley Quinn scene where she's breaking out was heavily inspired by his work on Lollipop Chainsaw.
I saw that. That was interesting. That's an interesting shout out.
Yeah. It'd be cool to see those two work together again. James Gunn's just so big now.
Yeah, he's just so big now. Yeah.
At the time when he did that was way before Guardians.
Yeah, that's way before he was still more of like an indie filmmaker.
Yeah.
Very much somebody that
he was doing stuff like Slither and Super.
He was doing stuff. Yeah, Super. He was. Yeah, back then he was still somebody like people in the know were into him. Like you had to be kind of like into genre filmmaking to be aware of his work at that point.
It's like Sam Raimi before Spider-Man.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's No More Heroes 3, Friday, August 27th, Nintendo Switch. On Thursday, September 2nd, on Peacock, AP Bio returns. Speaking of Raimi's favorite actor, Bruce Campbell, is going to be appearing in AP Bio as the lead character's father. I think it's just for an episode, but AP Bio is a hilarious series.
I can't wait to see Bruce Campbell's cameo in the next Doctor Strange film.
Oh, it'll be awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Yeah,
he should show up. He should have they should have all of his characters from the Raimi Spider-Man movies show up in Spider-Man 3 too.
They should,
because he played different characters in each of the Spider-Man movies.
They should all be in it. I don't think that's going to happen.
And then run into each other.
Yeah, right. If I was writing that movie,
Snooty Usher and the wrestling announcer.
If I was writing the script for that film, that's what I would do. I'd definitely have a scene with all the Bruce Campbells.
It'd be a great post-credit scene.
Yeah.
They could literally just copy that really famous scene, that Spider-Man scene that they parodied in Into the Spider-Verse, where it had the old school Spider-Man and they were pointing at each other. You know what I'm talking about? The really old school Spider-Man animated scene.
Yeah. From
they could do that, but it's with the three Bruce Campbell characters. Pointing at each other.
Brilliant. You're hired.
That'd be the best post-credit scene for Spider-Man 3. AP Bio, though, Bruce Campbell. If you don't have Peacock, there's a free tier that gets you some episodes. It won't get you the whole season or anything, but it might be worth checking out. Might be worth getting a free trial just so you can watch the rest of the show, because AP Bio is a really good show. It's really funny. even on its own, even without Bruce Campbell. And now you have Bruce Campbell joining in, so all the better.
All the better. Everything's better with Bruce Campbell.
On the same day, I think something that people are probably a lot more excited for, What We Do in the Shadows returns for its third season.
Hulu. Yes. I'm looking forward to it.
FX and Hulu.
I'm looking forward to it. That's that right there is my most anticipated. Well, obviously Shang-Chi, but like as far as like TV goes, that's my most anticipated. Yeah, What We Do in the Shadows is great. I'm a little cautious about this new season just because Clements, I can't even think of his name now. Jeremy Clement?
No, not Jeremy Clement. That's completely wrong. Jermaine Clement.
Jermaine Clement. Yeah, okay. See, we both can't remember names.
Who was the showrunner for the first two seasons and one of the stars of the original movie. He is not running this season.
Yeah.
He stepped down.
But the previews
makes me a little nervous.
Previews, it looks fine by the previews.
Previews look great,
Yeah, so like it doesn't look like there's been a drop in quality. Of course, those are just clips. But so far it looks promising.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. Like I said, I'm just a little bit cautious because of that news. Like, there's nothing I've seen to imply that it's not going to be good. It's just that it's a little unnerving to know that he's not involved. But that's it. Also, currently airing week to week on the CW and on HBO Max. If you're into What We Do in the Shadows, you might want to also look into Wellington Paranormal, which I talked about on a previous podcast. But just since I'm talking about What We Do in the Shadows, and since nobody's watching Wellington Paranormal, I thought it might be a good chance to bring that up. Wellington Paranormal is not only is it a spin-off of What We Do in the Shadows, the original movie, which the What We Do in the Shadows series is also part of that same universe. So it's all together. So it's technically in the same universe as the TV series. Not only that, but it was also run by Jermaine Clement.
Oh, okay.
So it's the same DNA, the same people involved, everything. So I highly recommend that to anybody who hasn't watched that. You can check that out on HBO Max. It's coming out week to week. There have been 3 seasons of that show, and they're airing them like straight through. Like they went through the first season, they're into the second season now, and they're just going through it. So yeah, check that out. But that's not new. That's not coming up this week. That's like already airing. And then lastly, a day after AP Bio and What We Do in the Shadows come out, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings debuts in movie theaters on Friday, September 3rd.
One of the big Marvel movies coming out this year.
It's the first really big project for Phase 4.
Yeah, it is. Black Widow. That always felt to me like... Yeah, it's a prequel. This feels like Phase 4 really getting started now with Shang-Chi, to me at least.
Yeah, besides, the Disney Plus stuff was also Phase 4. But
yeah, but it doesn't, it doesn't.
This is a big movie.
Yeah, this is a big movie.
It's an introduction of a new character that's heavily tied into the lore that goes all the way back to the first MCU movie. It's kind of a big deal. So it's going to be exciting to check that out.
It's going to be exciting. There's also, there's not going to be...
We're not doing that digital
Disney
premiere
access, whatever they called it. Yeah. That's not happening. This is going to be exclusively in theaters, but there's a shortened exclusivity window to where it's like 45 days exclusive to theaters. Then it will be on Disney Plus. I don't know if Disney is just going to put it on Disney Plus for everybody to watch, or if they're going to try some premiere access stuff to kind of like put on there and say, oh, you can watch it now for $30, and then try to drag it and then make it free after like what the normal theatrical window would have been. Yeah. I have no idea what they're going to do, but at least like you're not going to be able to watch it at home, which is unfortunate.
Unless you sail the 7 seas.
We don't endorse that here.
Yeah, no, we do not.
We do not. They give money, especially to projects like Shang-Chi. Please pay for your tickets.
Unless there's another Delta spike, I'm definitely going to theaters.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing. Why there's no in-home option is because of the Delta variant and the fact that it is so pervasive. If it wasn't a good idea to go to a theater last year, it's not the best idea to go to a theater this year. But I would say, if you're going to go to a theater, make sure that you're vaccinated, make sure that you're wearing a mask, that you're practicing social distancing. Just be safe. If you're not vaccinated, don't go to a theater. Go get vaccinated. If, unless there's legitimate reasons you can't be vaccinated.
Here's another recommendation if you can. Go in the middle of the week in the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah.
I went to the movie theaters. I've been trying to go for a while, and I haven't been going as much as I want to just because I've been nervous about crowd sizes and stuff. But I've gone a few times where I've gone and there have been like less than 10 people in the theater. And that's always happened to be like, say, on a Monday or a Wednesday, something like that, like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. That's when less people are at the theaters. Don't go on Friday. Don't go on Saturday. Don't go like in the early afternoon on Sunday when all the church crowds go, Don't do any of that, please, But I've been going back. COVID cases have been dropping where I live. California's been doing pretty good recently with the Delta variant. We had a spike, but it's been going down. The area in which I live, the exact area I live in California, cases have been down as well. Plus I'm vaccinated. Plus I'm wearing a mask. Plus I'm only going to showings where there's like less than 10 people in the theater. So it's tricky to go. It's a pain in the butt. I'm not going as much as I'd like to be going to the movies, but I'm probably going to be able to check this out in theaters unless there's like a really big spike suddenly, right before it comes out or something. But yeah, check it out in theaters, but be safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So our next segment, our last segment for the day, is full spoilers. Full spoilers is where we talk about what we've been watching in full spoilers. So week to week, we've been talking about What If, Marvel's What If series, talking about each episode of that for the past 2 weeks. We're going to be doing that again for the third episode of What If. But first, this Monday, The Witcher, Nightmare of the Wolf, The Witcher prequel animated movie hit Netflix. And so we're going to be talking about that right now. So what did you think of The Witcher, Nightmare of the Wolf?
I thought it was good. I enjoyed it.
I thought it was better than the series.
That's fair. Yes. That's a fair assessment. Yeah, it was really good. I loved the whole digging into the history of the universe. Basically, Nightmare of the Wolf is centered around Vesemir, who was Geralt's teacher.
If you've played the games, you know who he is.
Yeah. Person who made a teacher is kind of a weak term for it because I literally the person who made Geralt a Witcher. And basically diving into his history and sort of it goes into his past. It goes into his training and how he was brought up to be a Witcher himself.
Yeah, there's kind of 2 time periods. There's him as a kid learning to be a Witcher, or before he's a Witcher, going to become a Witcher, training to be a Witcher, being made into a Witcher. There's all of that time period. And then there's the present time period of the series, which is, I don't know, maybe 50 years later.
Yeah, which is, about 50 years later. And the present day time period basically centers around the fall of the Order of the Witchers. It all pretty much gets destroyed by the end of it.
Let me try to pronounce this. Of Kier Morhen.
Yeah. Thank
probably
you
pronounced
for
that wrong, but that's the Witcher castle, or at least one of them. I think there's actually multiple Witcher compounds, so one of them that fell in this movie. Yeah, it's something that's kind of was covered in the series a little bit. The idea that Witchers are in decline, that there's less and less Witchers. But not only that, but that people are a little suspicious of Witchers. They think oh, you're hucksters that go to towns and try to make out there's a situation that you're needed for so you can get money, that's you're undeserving to have, And so that's kind of in kind of the background of the Witcher series. And here it's kind of front and center. But yeah, it follows Vesemir, and in the present timeline, like you said, it follows the downfall of the Witcher group, and this particular Witcher group, the Wolf group, I believe they're called.
Yeah, it's mostly focused on the Wolf school. There's various different Witcher schools around. Mm-hmm. They're not affiliated, funny enough, because I was reading into some of the history on the Witcher, and at the very beginning when the concept was founded, all the Witcher schools used to be pretty much affiliated and run by the same group of mages and stuff, but it eventually led to Witchers getting fiercely competitive with each other, and it got to a point where they would just kill each other in the streets. Whenever a Witcher saw another Witcher, they'd just kill each other. And eventually I think there's this war between the different Witcher schools. And they were like, yeah, no, let's not have that happen again. And so they kind of just like decentralized it and made like the different schools unaffiliated, which kind of calmed everybody down to the point of like now, like after that, like whenever a Witcher ran across another Witcher, they kind of like recognized them as an equal or, you know, somebody they can respect rather than somebody they want to kill. And it kind of worked out better that way.
But yeah, so in the story, Vesemir ends up finding out about an elf or a group of elves that have been disappearing. He finds this out from Phil Vandrell, who is in the Witcher series as well, who tells him that, you know, elves have been disappearing and he wants Vesemir to help, but Vesemir doesn't want to because there's no money in it. Vesemir ends up getting involved because he's called upon by the kingdom that he's at to do so, where he ends up encountering somebody from his past as well, from before he was a Witcher. It was a girl that was his age that they kind of had like a budding romance that never ended up happening because he left to become a Witcher, and their town was basically overrun by monsters, and she got sent off to live with some noble family and then became part of this kingdom, like a noble within this kingdom. She's much older now because like Witchers don't age the same way humans do, you know, just like witches and sorcerers age very slowly. They live hundreds of years. So this is like 50 years later. She's like an old lady and he still looks young. He still looks like he's like 30 or something, or late 20s. So he gets caught in this kingdom basically because he and another Witcher friend of his end up killing some royal guards because they're provoked into a fight. And there's a sorceress in the kingdom. She wants the Witchers to be executed and everything. And they're like, you know, this one lady saying no, the king's agreeing with her, going like, I don't want to start war with the Witchers, all that stuff. The sorceress is clearly like has a bone to pick with Witchers.
Yeah, she clearly wants them dead.
Yeah, so Tetra is her name. She clearly wants them dead.
Tetra trackers.
Yeah, so Vesemir gets sent off with Tetra to find out this monster that's been like killing people like outside of their kingdom. And in doing so, they discover Kitsu, who is one of the elves that had disappeared. Yes. And they find Phil Vandrell there as well. He's kind of like tied up and they end up releasing him. They find another elf child.
Kitsu is a mutated elf. And that's important to know. Like, she's a mutated elf. And she's very powerful at casting illusions.
Yes. She's been turned into a monster and she's cast powerful illusion magic. They end up breaking through it, and Tetra ends up using Kitsu as evidence that like the Witchers created her and created the monsters that they're using, and causes the kingdom to basically declare war on the Witchers. It gets Kitsu herself involved in getting a bunch of monsters to attack the Witchers, as well as like the knights from the kingdom and everything, and the people just from the villages around. There's like just everyone's attacking the Witchers, and it's all about bringing down the Witchers, and it's all Tetra's plot because you find out that Tetra was the daughter of a victim of a Witcher who was manipulating a situation to make money by tricking somebody into thinking that, you know, somebody else in their village was working with monsters, or I don't remember the finer details of the plot, but her mother was killed by a Witcher, and this has been like a big revenge plot of hers ever since. Like, she's been working with Kitsu from the very beginning to set up this plot. And the result is basically the death of like every Witcher in this place.
Yes, pretty much everybody.
Except Vesemir and the children.
Yeah, except for Vesemir and the children.
One of which is a young Geralt.
Yeah. One of the children is young Geralt, which we knew because we already knew. Like, if you watch the show, if you read anything about The Witcher, but especially if we're sticking to Netflix, if you already watched the show, then you knew Vesemir was Geralt's teacher because he mentioned him several times on the show already.
Yeah, he's going to be in season 2 as well.
Yeah, he's going to be in season 2 as well. So this is kind of like an animated film to kind of get you acquainted with him and his backstory before he shows up again in the narrative in the live action.
He's a very charismatic character, at least in this.
I
don't know how he'll appear in Witcher season 2, but in this, he's a very charismatic character. He's voiced by Theo James, who also did Hector in Castlevania.
Yes. It's funny because Graham McTavish who did Dracula in Castlevania, also has voice in this as Vesemir's teacher.
Deglin.
Yeah, Deglin.
Which is funny because, you know, Dracula was like Hector's mentor too.
Yeah.
It's kind of keeping the same relationship between them. But yeah, and there's a few characters like Phil Vandrell, which I mentioned is the elf character, is played by Tom Canton. He was also in the first season of The Witcher as the same character played by the same actor.
Yeah.
So there's like there's characters that are like through this that are like elves, in the series.
Elves live very long lives.
Yeah, just like witchers and sorcerers. Yes.
I think elves are probably more long-lived than either of those, according to. I'd have to double check, but I think according to the mythology, elves are the longest-lived beings.
It's elves and sorcerers, then witchers, or something.
Yeah, I think that's the order.
So I imagine a lot of the witchers die younger just because of their
their profession. Yeah, their occupation. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of other things to bring up about this movie. I guess I could say this comes from Studio Mir. It's a South Korean animation studio best known for Legend of Korra. They're the ones that did this. That's why the animation quality is much better than like Castlevania.
Right.
which was from an American animation company that was less experienced with this kind of stuff, like these kind of like anime-esque productions. Like the Castlevania studio before had done stuff like kids animation stuff before, you know. They didn't really have as much experience with the more serious stuff. So that's it. Anything else you wanted to bring up about Witcher Nightmare of the Wolf?
No, I think that covers that.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's like I said, I think on the last podcast, I voiced my displeasure with the Witcher TV series, that it's just not that good, that it's got like a lot of good elements, but the series itself is just not that good. This I thought was actually a lot better. It was more tightly paced. It had a more relatable story. It had a better presentation of a charismatic lead who, like, they played the Witchers off more as rogues than they did before, which worked.
Yeah.
For the story.
Well, the problem is like the way Vesemir behaves and stuff. Unfortunately, that's not Geralt's character, you know? Like, yeah. So,
but they really played him off as like. Have you played the Witcher games?
A little bit.
Okay, see, Vesemir's in the Witcher games. I haven't played the Witcher games myself. Have you seen Vesemir in the games?
I can't. It's been a while.
So I'm wondering how he's portrayed in the games and in the books. You've read some of the books, though, haven't you? Or
I read some of the short stories.
Okay, was Vesemir in any of those? Or?
No.
Okay, I'm just wondering if his portrayal in this is different than in the other ones, because I really like his character in this. Like,
I only read like the first book of short stories because it's at the time it was the only thing I could get my hands on, because like they were pretty much sold out of like all the Witcher books on Amazon.
Yeah, once the series came out.
Yeah. So far I've only read the first book of short stories, and it's mostly like the characters that appeared in the first season, because the first season is mostly based off of stories from the first book of short stories anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get to any of the stories where Vesemir showed up or anything.
All right. If you have experience with the Witcher games or the books or anything, and you want to tell us how Vesemir is portrayed in those, and if it's different from the thing, then, send us feedback. You can do it on the YouTube channel, through SoundCloud, through Twitter is probably the best way, at Tyson Gifford and at Voxel Hero. You can check those out later. We'll bring that up again at the end of the podcast. But that's The Witcher Nightmare of the Wolf. Let's move on to our next show, and that is What If, Episode 3, What If the World Lost Its Mightiest Heroes?
Yeah. I'm into this.
What's interesting here is this is very reminiscent of not What If, but of Marvel has had a run of comics, like multiple runs, with it kind of end with kills the Marvel Universe. Like Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, or you know, Punisher kills the Marvel Universe, where they basically follow a character systematically going through and murdering everybody in the Marvel Universe. That's what this felt like to me.
Which this isn't like out over the top or anything like those were.
It's not as over the top, but it's
this is played off as like a murder mystery, more like Christie than like
it's reminiscent of those, but from like a different perspective,
Yeah, from
because those are like from like the Punishers or from Deadpool's perspective, or
those are from like the Killer's perspective. This is from Shield's perspective, because again, it's played off as a murder mystery because we don't know who's doing this or how they're doing it. Well,
we should explain what it is.
Yeah, right. Well, as you can guess from the title, What If Earth Lost Its Mightiest Heroes? The idea of it is that this takes us back to the beginning of the MCU with Nick Fury
Iron Man 2 is where it starts, I think.
Yes, with Nick Fury trying to Yeah, Iron Man 2 is where it starts. And it goes back to Nick Fury trying to recruit the Avengers, form the Avengers Initiative, you know. Except instead of forming the Avengers, they all end up dying, getting killed in very mysterious ways. Like in Iron Man 2, when Nick Fury's talking to Tony and Black Widow gives him that shot, you know, that's, I forgot lithium something in there. It was supposed to help Tony with like the issue he was having. She gives him that and then he just keels over and dies, you know, unexpectedly.
Yeah. Whereas in Iron Man 2, he ended up, you know, it ended up helping him a bit. Yeah,
it ended up helping him because it was supposed to. And, you know, he ends up dying. And we get these scenes, you know, we get like recreations of scenes from like the movie because like it basically focused on like Iron Man 2, Thor, and Hulk.
Those are kind of like, remember before I talked about how like each of the What If episodes was supposed to like represent one of the movies in the MCU? It's like this one basically covered 3.
Yeah, this one basically covered
the Hulk, 3. Iron Man 2, and Thor.
Well, and because it like establishes that the events of those 3 films happen within a week.
Yeah.
You know, and it does that too because there's like an establishing where it's like Tuesday, you know? And basically what happens is like Thor gets shot with Hawkeye's arrow, you know, and Hawkeye's like insisting that he didn't shoot it, you know, like.
Well, he gets imprisoned and so does Black Widow.
Yeah, Black Widow gets imprisoned. They get blamed for the murders, even though like Nick Fury knows something else is going on. Nick Fury's not stupid.
Yeah.
But like
Natasha breaks out.
Yeah, with Nick Fury's help. Because, you know, Nick Fury basically sets Natasha on helping him, like, investigate this. So basically, we're following Nick Fury as he's trying to figure out what the hell's happening, you know, what's going on with all this. Thor dies, and then the Hulk dies. Like, Hulk literally, like, implodes while he's, like, hulking out against, like, General Thunderbolt Ross and, like, the U.S. military. At the same time, Loki and a whole army from Asgard, including Sif, comes down to Earth to, like, avenge the death of Thor, you know? And so, like, Nick Fury has to deal with that. You know, Nick Fury says, you know, we're trying to look for the guy who did that. Just like give us like, and Loki gives him like a day to do it.
Yeah, you'll get your pound of flesh, and Loki's like, I like that expression, but I'm going to need the whole corpse.
Yeah. They go through everything. Eventually, like Black Widow, she comes across like a very important like clue. She basically figures out who it is, who's doing it. But then she gets killed as soon as she figures it out, you know?
Yeah.
And she leaves a message on her phone, you know.
It's all about hope.
It's all about hope. It's all about hope. And that kind of gets us to our conclusion, our confrontation, because like eventually it's revealed that the killer all along was Hank Pym in the Yellow Jacket suit, you know, and he's avenging the death of his daughter, Hope, who apparently in this timeline
was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and ended up getting killed while working for S.H.I.E.L.D.
And so having lost both his wife and his daughter, Hank Pym goes crazy and starts killing everybody. He just
snaps. Yeah, he starts killing everybody because he wants S.H.I.E.L.D. to suffer.
Yeah.
I like the fight, too, with Hank Pym and Nick Fury because it's revealed it's not really Nick Fury, it's Loki that he was fighting.
And Loki's just having fun.
And Loki's just having fun with it.
He just keeps swatting him and stuff.
Yeah, he just keeps swatting him and shit. And then, like, the funny thing, like, afterwards, like, Loki's like, oh, yeah, you wanted us to be allies, huh? Yeah, we could definitely do that. And then it shows Loki, he's taking over the world.
He's basically able to do what he wanted to do in the Avengers, but through diplomacy.
Through diplomacy. He's like, oh, it's your destiny to be ruled.
He does the same speech he did in Avengers,
Yeah, he does the same speech he did in Avengers. But there's a ray of hope at the end because, there's still some cards in the deck.
Steve Rogers was frozen.
Yep, because we see Nick Fury find Steve Rogers' frozen body. He's going to thaw him out. And also he has Captain Marvel by his side. So... like, I really enjoyed this episode, but one of the things is, like, it kind of kills me, like, ends there, because, like, I really want to see where the story goes from that point, right?
Yeah.
Like, so far, this is, like, one of the most radical, like, departures of the entire series. Like, this completely changes the outcomes and, like, the events of this universe going forward, having like most of the Avengers be dead.
This is what What If should be. It should be radical departures. So like the second episode, this one is like much different. I think this is better than the second episode just because the second episode just seemed like a big flex against Peter Quill. It was like just everything was about how much Peter Quill sucks.
I didn't take it that way, but I suppose like if you want to take it that way, that's fine. I didn't take it. It
was just like if Black Panther was Star-Lord, everything in the Marvel universe would be solved.
Yeah.
And it just kind of was like a bit ridiculous in that way. Whereas this felt a bit more grounded. Like even the ending, even when before the Loki thing at the end, even when Hank Pym was defeated, like it kind of came down to rationality at the end, where like him and Nick Fury like saw eye to eye for like a just the second before he left. Nick Fury did a whole speech about brave agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that have, lost their lives in service of protecting others and stuff. And Pym's like, then honor her. Nick Fury's like, of course.
Yeah, exactly. It also showed how terrifying Ant-Man's powers can really be.
Yeah.
When
like I kind of figured out that it was Ant-Man like after Hawkeye died.
Right.
That's kind of around where I figured it out. So when the Hulk ended up blowing up, I totally thought they were going to do the long desired or wanted, Ant-Man flying up Thanos' ass. I totally thought like that's how he was going to take out the Hulk. He was going to fly up his ass and detonate.
He flew into the Hulk via a bullet.
Yeah.
So not via ass. But that meme was born out of the idea that if Ant-Man was around, during Infinity War, and if he really wanted to, he could get inside of Thanos and really end it. That's probably the reason he was not in Infinity War, because conveniently written out just so that can't happen.
Yeah, so that's, like you said, a side benefit of this episode was showing just how deadly Ant-Man could be,
Yes.
Like Ant-Man was always played more comically, like he didn't do anything that crazy,
Right.
But the show that he could is kind of what this episode did, so... Cool episode. Like I said, probably my favorite of the three so far.
If they ever do sequels to specific episodes of What If, this probably would be one of the ones I would want to get a sequel.
I think they implied they were doing a sequel to the last one.
Yeah, probably.
Because they said when they revealed the whole thing about, Ego coming up to pick up Peter Quill, who wasn't Star-Lord, he said that would lead to the end of the universe, but that's another story.
He said that was the end of the Earth.
No, I know, but after that he said, but that's another story. Yeah, as if it was something they were going to do later.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they do. That would be really cool if they some follow-ups to some of these. But this one would be an even cooler follow-up with the whole how do you take out Loki? With just Captain Marvel and Captain America.
Captain America.
I guess Captain Marvel's stronger than Loki. So
Captain Marvel's pretty OP. So I don't know. Probably won't have too much trouble there with her.
But that's it for What If. Unless, do you have anything else to say about the episode?
No. I enjoyed it though. Really enjoyed it. Hope we get more stuff in this vein. I'm looking forward to next week. I don't know what's happening next week, but this is a fun show so far.
Yeah. So this means that we've been through a third of the first season, because there's 9 episodes in the first season. So we got 6 more to go. One thing I definitely did pick up in this episode is that it really solidified the tone of the show as being kind of, even though it's supposed to be canon for the MCU, but it's just different dimensions, it really kind of showed its cards as being more just goofy and silly. And I think where it did that is there were a few kind of funny lines of dialogue that I don't know if I would have pictured them in the MCU. Even when the MCU gets funny, I don't think I would have pictured it.
Oh yeah, the stuff about Coulson and Nick Fury and stuff, gushing about how beautiful Thor is.
Yeah, I think there was another scene before that.
Even when he's rotting, he smells like lavender.
Yeah.
Then Coulson takes another sniff.
There's one before that. I think it was when Thor was breaking into the facility and they said, why can't our trained operatives stop him or something? And I think Coulson said, not even Johnson, and he does CrossFit.
Yeah.
And then the other one I wrote down that was really funny, that was also before the one you're talking about, was when they were looking at Thor when he was trying to pick up the hammer, and he's and he has really great hair.
Yeah.
And
that was a big thing.
Fury's what? And Coulson's it's an accurate description. He's gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I thought those two were funny. I actually wrote those down on my phone to bring up for this just because they were like really funny lines. What those really did for me is they solidified what the real tone of What If is as a series. And that's that it's not, even though it's supposed to be canon for the MCU, it just feels more like, you know, what you'd expect the What If series to be if it wasn't told to you that it was canon, you know, as something that's just kind of funny and silly and fun, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it for this episode. Thank you everybody for listening. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. Send us feedback on Twitter if you want. We'd appreciate it. Good, bad, or indifferent. Anything that you want to talk about. If you want to talk about something we talked about in the show already, we can address it on air in a future podcast. If you want to talk about something that we're going to be discussing the next week, same thing. So if you catch What If, and remember we record on Wednesdays, so you'd have to catch it early, and you want to like leave a comment about it for next week's episode, you know, hit us up on Twitter really quick, and you might be able to get your comment on the air of our podcast next week or any other week that we're happen to be doing it. So yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the On-Screen podcast, the official podcast of The Little Screen. Visit our website at thetittlescreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.